yeah, you'll have to bear with me. Right, so just going to let everybody in. Right, so this morning we're going to talk about transcribing the value of your university experience. So for those of you who don't have work experience or internships, because we know that they're typically really difficult to get. We're going to talk about other ways of being able to demonstrate experience on your CV, and things that how you can phrase it. So it's a very informal session today. Like I said, if you want to eat your breakfast and have coffee and everything else, it's fine. We're just going to go through some examples, so feel free to ask any questions. So if you don't know, I'm Nolene Hammond-Jones. I'm the International Career Consultant at the university. I work with all international and EU students. Today, we're going to look at what do you already know? How can you stand out in CV content and format? Okay, so we'll cover all of these. And again, like I said, if you've got questions, shout. Don't literally shout because you might scare somebody, but do unmute yourself and ask the question. Okay. So we're going to look at what employers want. What are they looking for? Demystify some of the random things that they ask for, or generic things, because a lot of them do have very similar job adverts. And then also understand your skills and what you can offer the employer in terms of value. Also understand the conventions of applying for jobs. So we'll go through that very briefly, but like I said, if you have a specific question, do ask and I'll try and answer it. Or if it's not for this session, you can always arrange on Career Connect, where you booked onto this session. You can arrange to have a careers appointment with one of my colleagues or myself. It doesn't always have to be me. Just to clarify as well, if you're international, it doesn't mean you only get an option to see me. You can see your faculty career consultant as well, who would be more of a sector job specialist than I am. I'm more global, international, or looking at UK strategies as a generic approach. But if you're looking at a specific sector that you're interested in, that you want to go into based on what you're studying, then your humanities or Faculty of Science Engineering or Faculty of Biomedical and Human Sciences consultant is the person to go and see. So what I'm going to do, and this is me going to, I'm going to stop sharing now and put you in breakout rooms. And I know this seems a bit early on, but I would like you to really try, get your cameras on. Really, you're not going to get a lot out of this session. So I know a lot of sessions that I tend to do on GoToWebinar, so there isn't the option to kind of chat to one another. But I really want you to make the most of the session and how you're going to do this. So in your breakout rooms, what I really want you to do is think about what skills are important to an employer. What have you seen? What have you heard? Have you attended sessions recently? Have you applied online? Have you heard from a recruiter? Have you Googled something? And in your breakout rooms, I want you to brainstorm together the skills that you think are important to employers, what they're looking for from you. Now, afterwards, I'll go through the different skills that employers ask for and we'll chat about them. I also would really appreciate, you can use your whiteboard, you can use whatever to make notes, you can make your own notes. But as I said, you'll only get benefit from this session if you really participate. So I'm going to stop sharing. And this is me going to try and use breakout rooms now, right? So wish me luck. So what I want to do is put you in, how many have we got? I'm going to go with 8 breakout rooms. So should work out, right? So in your breakout rooms, cameras on, unmute yourselves, really. If your group isn't talking, come back into the main room and I'll put you in a different group. But I really would like to see you get the most out of this session. So I'm going to create this and then go into the rooms and talk about skills. So you have about 3-4 minutes. So it's not a long time, 3-4 minutes, and then I'll call you back in. Bye. And start sharing my screen again. Okay, so I'm hoping that most of you have found that session? I mean, does anyone want to speak up or contribute any surprises? Anything that you weren't expecting? Anything that you were? Things that frustrate you? You hate hearing it? It's a skill that you're bored of hearing of?
In breakout room 7, we talked about STEM jobs mostly, okay, and how there is an analytical side to the expectation. There's an expectation side, which is the analytical, yeah. But there's also communication abilities, and how it's easier to show on your CV that you've got the analytical bit by showing off your projects and what you've done at university, but not as easy to show that you've got the communication skills.
Okay.
Yeah, we talked about that a little bit.
Do most of you feel like communication skills, it's just one of those, like, I can talk, what are they looking for? Yeah, I think there's generally, what do they mean by communication skills? So a lot of it around communication, interpersonal skills, is about being able to relay information effectively to a colleague, about being able to share information or translate maybe complicated information into a more simplistic kind of terms for somebody who's non-STEM related maybe. So if you're working in an organization where you have to, for instance, I don't know, work with HR about hiring an intern, and you need that intern to have a specific skill set, but you're explaining to that HR person who isn't a STEM professional what these mean so that they can help you in the shortlisting process. So there's ways and means that you can demonstrate that on a CV, that through group work, project work, societies, things that you've been involved in where you've had to either give instructions or you've developed a rapport which has resulted in something really positive with somebody. So it could be it could be an agreement to host an online event. It could be, so recently I had a really good idea with one of my friends to host, I like books. I love books. I'm a bit of a book geek. So on Instagram, I love sharing my book passions, and one of my friends is American and I'm Irish, and we decided to do an Irish American book chat. And it's one of those things that it's fun to do, but it's really increased our audience. So that is something around communication, and you can demonstrate that. So it's around demonstrating these skills, but based on what you've done at university. So we'll go through it, and if you have more questions, let me know, and I can give you a specific skill. But what employers want, what they're asking for, is attention to detail and accuracy. And like you said, Mohammed, in analytical terms, anyone doing anything analytical, it's fairly straightforward. Communication skills, it's group work, being able to lead on group work, or potentially communicating, doing a presentation to a group of academics. There's lots of ways in which you can demonstrate communication skills. If you're a past or peer mentor, sending out messages regularly in support of your students, making sure that your group feels supported and connected, is a demonstration of communication skills. And interpersonal skills is very similar, but it's enabling someone to gain the information that they need to do what they need to do. So you're passing on information to that individual. Time management, organizational skills, commercial awareness. Now, commercial awareness, a lot of people trip up on this. All it is Googling and researching the company that you're applying to. That is literally it. So it's look them up online. Who are they? Who are their competitors? What is the sector that they operate in? Are there any difficulties in that sector? Are there any, have government changes, coronavirus? What is affecting that sector? So that's commercial awareness. And that alone demonstrates to an employer passion, motivation, because you've taken the time to research who they are, what they do, and who their competitors are. Now, the biggest gripe of an employer is lack of commercial awareness and lack of being able to articulate your motivation. So lack of commercial awareness, it's an easy fix. The motivation side, that's down to you. So that's where you need, through the research of who the company is in the sector, hopefully you'll understand why you want to work for them. What is it about that organization that makes you want to work for them? Are they innovative? Are they creative? Do they support sustainability? You know, have they got a social agenda that really appeals to you? What is it about the organization that motivates you to want to work for them? So I'm not going to go through all the skills, but problem solving, flexibility. I mean, flexibility is a big one right now, especially with coronavirus, being able to adapt quickly to change, work from home. And another thing as well, being digitally agile. I haven't put that on there, but, you know, not just participating on Zoom, but maybe running your own Zoom sessions for group work and things like that, learning all the little technical bits and bobs, which I'm still learning, but, you know, it's one of those things, it's a skill that you're working on. And then what does the employer want? So like I said, they want your interest, enthusiasm, and motivation. It's kind of, and this sounds silly, but it's kind of like dating. They want to be first choice. They don't want to know that you want to, you know, apply to 20 other companies. They want to know that you're dedicated to them. Now, they know you're going to apply to other companies. They know they're not going to be your only choice, but they want you to clearly define in your application, why them? And you've got to think, why them? And if you don't have, if you just like, oh yeah, you're one of the top 4 companies, you know, you're really good. I want to work in your London office, which sounds really, really bad when it's the Manchester office recruiting, or the Reading office, or the Shanghai office, or the Dubai office. And they're like, but we're hiring for here. So why are you telling me you want to work somewhere else? So have your motivations clearly defined. And understand what the organization does. Go beyond their website, beyond the About Us section on their website, okay? And evidence the skills and experience that make you right for the job. So we'll talk about that a bit more. When applying for work experience, how does this fit in with your current career objectives? Like, what? I'm not talking about a 5 or 10 year plan. I never had a 5 or 10 year plan. When I was at university, I never planned to be a career consultant. It kind of happened. I actually started off as a nurse. So I've had a very interesting career path, which has involved insurance and student support and welfare and teaching. And then I've gone on and I've become an international career consultant. So I'm not talking that you need to have a 5 or 10 year plan, but have ideas or broad goals of where you want to go. What skills do you want to develop? What interests you in terms of a career? And then how do I find out what they want? So as I said, research the organizations, you know, think about how can I add value? What skills, what expertise do I have? What additional experiences? And it could be volunteering experience, it could be part of your society or club. And they're not expecting you to have, you know, 10 years worth of industry experience to apply for these jobs. They just want you to be able to tell them clearly how you are a good fit for their organization. And you can do that, especially by looking at their values. So a lot of organizations identify themselves like they're a person. So they've got these value systems. And how do you fit into those values? Now, if you read those values of an organization and you think, wow, I don't agree with them, I don't really fit into those values, I wouldn't apply for the job. Because if you get a conflict in values, you're not going to be happy. So for instance, when I was back at university, my degree was in marketing and advertising. And one of my friends was teetotal, didn't drink, didn't agree with alcohol. And she applied for a job with Diageo, who own some of the biggest brand names in alcohol that you can find. And there was such a mismatch in her value system and what she wanted to do. But Diageo was an enormous company, great, you know, opportunities, but she just couldn't get past the value system, and it made it an uncomfortable time. So you've got to really, this is where the research and commercial awareness is really important, because you got to understand who are they, and are you going to be happy there? Do you agree with their activities? Do you agree with their values? Do you agree with the company's, you know, services, the team, the kind of people that they hire? Are you going to be a good fit? Because it's not just about you selling yourself into the organization, you know, this is why I'm going to be great for you. You've got to be happy too. You've got to be happy with them. You know, you're also going into their organization, and you spend more time with the people you work with than your own families. Not at the moment, but hopefully we'll get back to that. But in a lot of organizations, you do in a work week, you spend more time in the office. So you've got to be happy in what you do. Sites like Prospects is really good for looking up specific job roles and what that involves, day-to-day activities. So if you're unsure of the day-to-day activities and what's involved, you can check out Prospects. Really interesting. Also helps you figure out the sectors that you can operate in. So if you do have any queries around a specific job role, or you've heard, because a lot of people will come to me and go, management consultant. I want to be a management consultant. And it's like, well, go and do the research and figure out what a management consultant is. What do they do? And does that still sound good? And then we can look and explore options. And also talk to people from business. So at the moment, there's so many companies doing online networking, free events. All of them are on Career Connect, by the way. So do sign up. So if you've got specific companies in mind, look at them on Career Connect and see if they're holding any events coming up. But also follow them on social media. So you're going to hear more quickly on social media about any upcoming events or anything that an employer is doing before anything else. So they're going to update social media first before they update a website. So follow them on LinkedIn, follow them on social media where they're active. And a lot of organizations are engaging with Instagram, they're engaging with TikTok as ways of recruiting as well. So do have a look and figure out what it is what's the best way for you to get information. Okay. So CVs. Okay, what is a CV? So the last thing you want to do is put CV at the top of your CV, by the way, or curriculum vitae, because it's very obviously a CV or curriculum vitae. So you don't need to put that up there. And there is a slight difference between a CV and a resume, but not enough that anybody really knows. Does that make sense? So people use the terms interchanged. What you want to know is, what are they asking for in terms of a CV? Are they looking for a one-page CV or a two-page CV? Are they looking for a technical CV or a chronological CV? And most companies will indicate, they'll either just say CV, which means it's up to you. But if it's America, you're applying to a job in America, then it is a one-page CV. If you're applying to a job in banking, finance, or consulting in the UK, it's a one-page CV. So there's lots of nuances, but again, they normally will let you know in the job advert. So do read the job advert carefully. And when you're applying for a job, save the job advert. Copy and paste into a Word document or download the PDF, because once that job closes and the closing date comes, that job disappears. And then you'll get an email inviting you to interview, and the interview questions will be based on the job description. And then you're like, oh, I can't find it. It's gone. So if you are applying for jobs, do save the job description as a document PDF. Okay. So the purpose of the CV is to get you to the next stage in the recruitment process. It is basically, you know, a marketing document. It's basically a way for you to show an employer what you have to offer. And it does this by evidencing your personal qualities, your academic knowledge, key skills, and experience. And that's listed on the document. And it's usually reverse chronological, so the most recent experience or education is at the top of each section. Now, what's your evidence? Your education, academic and specialist knowledge. For those of you who are doing a master's, you are specializing in a specific subject area. And don't assume all employers have gone to university, because they haven't. They've either, it's been a family business, or they've worked their way up through apprenticeships. So don't assume that when you put your degree title down that that's enough, because they might not know. So if there are specific modules in your degree that you want to share with them, or you've done a specific group work project on their sector or on their organization, put that underneath your education. So you would have your, and it always starts date, program title, and then university. That's all on one line, and you use the shift key to make the spaces. And underneath You can do, and you can explain what your degree title is if it's something very complicated, but also you can list your modules, and not all of them, but just pick the ones that employers want to know about. Any group work you're doing, you can put, if your average mark is quite good and you're on track for a first or 2-1, put that up there. If your marks aren't very good, don't put it up there. Don't give them a reason not to hire you, okay? If you already have your dissertation or final project title and you want to talk a little bit about that, add that in there and you think it's relevant. So there's treat your education like it's a job. So if you've participated in group work that you want to share, this is your opportunity to do that. And you can list soft skills and transferable skills. So, your problem solving, if you've been given a specific problem as a group to solve and you led that group, led a group of 5 people to solve the issue of whatever it may have been. And then you can talk about different things that you did as a result. It's important to get that information in. As I said, employers don't necessarily know what you are studying in your program, and there's no 2 programs really the same title either. So even though they might be like, I'm doing marketing and someone else is doing marketing, we might be doing completely different modules or completely different, someone could be doing digital marketing, I could be doing digital advertising, completely different. And it's worth letting the employer know if it's going to be beneficial to them. Okay. So how you frame this experience is through the CAR approach: context, action, result. Now, it's also known as the STAR approach. I don't use STAR because I think subject and task or situation and task are very similar, and sometimes it can be really difficult to differentiate between situation and task. So it's just context. Give a 1 or 2 line overview of the context, what's happening, okay? And then the action is, what did you do? I'm not hiring the group. I don't want I want to see what did you do. So you can use things, because we don't use I in a CV format, but you can use action verbs like founded, led, created, developed, researched, whatever, presented, using those action verbs to demonstrate the skill that you want to, solved, problem solving. Communicated via social media channel, increasing engagement by 20%. That could be that you communicated an event for your society to Instagram, and where you had previously 20 people attending an online event, you now have 30. They don't need to know that you have 10 people, but you could do a percentage. So it's how you communicate that, showing that you're using a skill that basically demonstrates the skills that they're looking for. And then results, always have it result orientated. If you can quantify your information, I want to see it. So I want to see, worked as part of a team of 5 people from 3 countries, or presented on I don't know, human resource developments due to the coronavirus to 5 academics, resulting in a mark of whatever it was. So, or if you did badly, so if the result isn't great, but it's a good demonstration of a skill, then what I learned from this situation is, or learned that next time, changing whatever it is. You never blame it on someone else. So something didn't go well, you don't say, well, in future, I would not work with that person, or in future, or that person, it was all their fault, because nobody, even though it probably was, nobody wants to hear that. What they want to see is what actions and what responsibility and accountability are you taking for next time. So next time it could be, if it was that person's fault, it could be ensuring communication is more regular, so that any difficulties team members are facing can be addressed quickly, rather than that person didn't do what they said they would do, which we all have experienced in group work, right? We've all got that one person who was supposed to do something who never did it. But don't tell the employer that, so what would you do differently? I'd ensure that I, email them once a week, ensure that things, setting milestones, mini milestones, rather than expecting everything to be done by an end date, which wouldn't leave much time for problem solving if things went wrong or if something was missing. So does that make sense to everybody? So don't do the blame game. It doesn't work. Nobody likes it. And then going on to how this would look. So if for any of you who are past leaders, for example, this is how you would put the CAR approach into action. And it's context. As a past leader in year 2, that's enough. Don't need much more. It's literally 10% of your answer. I supported, and this is more interview than CV, but you can change it round to be for CV if you want. I supported a group of 12, quantifying, year 1 students to develop a self-directed learning approach to their studies. By discussing their concerns, I was able to point them to suitable resources to use. Result, this developed my listening and empathy skills, plus the students expressed their gratitude and were visibly more confident in their studies after semester 1. Another result could be that 5 of the students came back with positive feedback regarding the self-directed learning approach and felt that it impacted their studies in a positive way. Does that help? Does that kind of give you an idea of how CAR is put into practice? Yeah, okay. So when I say convince me, there's no point just saying, I have a skill. I want to see evidence, demonstrate how you got this skill. Give me an example, a scenario. And going back to this could be being in a society or club. This could be, like me, running your own social media platform. So if you're running something online, if you're on GitHub, so if you're, if you're a programmer and you're on GitHub, if you're running your own Instagram account and it's a public account that you're looking to gain following for, if you are volunteering, so if you have a volunteering experience, part-time job, whatever it may be, this is a great way of being able to demonstrate that. So it doesn't all have to be about internships. Just think about what you do in everyday life. It could be just that you're a babysitter even, and that, minding any children is, believe you me, a massive skill. I used to teach 25 4-year-olds. And that was just a zoo. That's just crazy. Basically, you're just trying to stop them from biting one another and just being able to sit. That is a skill of being able to manage 25 individuals. And I don't have to say 4-year-olds, but I manage 25 people through their learning experiences, so think about what you've done and how you can transcribe that as an experience. So I'm going to stop there for a second because I know I've given you quite a lot of information and I can't see the chat areas when I share my screen. So let me just see. Do you think creativity as a skill is actively sought after? Yes, is the first thing. So it's not just about being creative and being artistic. It's also about you can be creative in your problem solving. You can be creative in your approaches to things. It's about thinking outside the box, as the phrase goes. So thinking about how you approach something. And you can demonstrate this in a CV by giving an example of when you used your creativity. So whether it was how you communicated with somebody, how you approached a problem. Think about how you can demonstrate that either as part of your education or part of a work experience opportunity and put that in there. Creativity is one of the most sought after skills that an employer looks for. Sometimes a joint situation and task together, and maybe that's better known as context. Yes, so I don't like the STAR approach. Oh, hi, Kiri. You all get emails from Kiri as well. So Kiri is my counterpart and we work together on this. But CAR is the way for me, it's shorter, so it's easier to remember. And situation and task, they're very similar. So I just go with context. Give me the context, give me the outline of the situation. That's what I'm looking for. And what should I do if I cannot always quantify results? Do you think all results are quantifiable? No. If you can quantify, it's better because figures draw the eye. So, you know, if you say that you worked as part of a team of 15 people, that's going to draw my eye quicker than I worked as part of a team. If you can say I worked as part of a team of 15 people from 4 countries, that's even better, because that shows me that you can communicate cross-culturally, you can work cross-culturally, you can problem solve cross-culturally. There's lots of things that you can do effectively when you're working in a diverse team. So it's around and that's what I mean. You don't actually have to say, I can work in a diverse team. Saying that you have, you know, you work as part of a team of 15 people from 4 countries is saying that. So it doesn't have to be quantifiable, but if you can't quantify it, give a result. So this ended in a positive outcome, resulting in the offer of further work with this individual, or this resulted in demonstrating my motivation for working within this sector, or this resulted in understanding that this is the organization that I want to work for. Whatever it is, it doesn't have to be quantifiable, but you should have a result. There should have been an end result. Everything you do has a result. You just sometimes have to think about it. And if you're struggling, you can make an appointment to see myself or one of my colleagues, and we can have a chat about it and help you to figure out what the results may be. Does that make sense to everybody? Anybody have any other questions before we move on to the next bit?
I have a question, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
More like 2 questions, or maybe more, I don't know. It's just like the same idea though. So the first one is about skills. Do we just like list them, like add the section in the CV and say skills and like list them? Or like, am I supposed to show them through the description of the kind of like work I have been doing? And then the second question is like, I'm gonna talk about the personal experience. Like I never had a proper job like for a year or so, because like I did my undergrad abroad, for instance, and like I was not allowed to work in that country. It's like a legal thing because I'm not a national. So I did all sort of volunteering and internships. Like I was the editor-in-chief for my like university newsletter and all of that, but none of them was paid. None of them was official. So
it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
I'm doing masters. Yeah.
It doesn't have to. So when I talk about experience, I'm talking about all experiences. So group work. It doesn't. When we say a proper job, we have a habit, I think, as a society, to undervalue our contributions. Yeah, and it does. And I know you think, oh, I wasn't paid for it, so it's not a real job. And it is a job. You've contributed to your university society. So, you know, and your university community. So any experience you've had, whether it's volunteering, paid, unpaid, whether it's you've created something like a mural and shared it with your community, you know, it doesn't have to be something that is paid and under a very specific job title with a specific company. And when we say relevant experience, I want to get this out of the way as well. It doesn't mean you have to work for that company or that sector in an internship. It could be any internship or any work experience, but equally, it's just experiences. And by relevant, I mean, how can you demonstrate those skills? So relevant experience to me, and I know some people will differ on this, but to me, is how can you clearly tell an employer that you have the skills that they're asking for? And it's not listing the skills. Don't just list, because I can say communicator, you know, marketing. I can talk about all the different skills that I have, you know. I want to see evidence. So that's where the CAR approach. So do put those skills under each experience. So how you write the CV. So your first section is usually your education. Your second section is your work experience. Now, if you don't have work experience, you can title it positions of responsibility. You can title it leadership positions, or you can title it volunteering. You can split it out. So if you have actual volunteering experience with charities, then that can be its own section. But then if you volunteered for your university to do different activities, or you volunteered for your society to do something, that could be positions of responsibility, because you have had a responsibility or, you know, a task to do as part of that role. And then you use the CAR approach. So I would like to see 2 to 3 bullet points under each of those experiences, starting with an action verb: created, led, founded, developed, managed, whatever it was. I want to see 2 to 3 bullet points, what you did, and quantifiable information. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. The last question is about salary. Like I was once asked about what I want for a salary, and like I looked so stupid because I know we were not supposed to say that, but I literally said, "Oh, I never had a job, so I really have no idea." But like
Yeah.
maybe you're supposed to like propose something, but like I'm like you decide whatever you want.
Well,
But, like
it's just doing your research. So at graduate level, it depends on where you're going. So again, it's doing your research. What job market are you interested in, and what is the general approach by the recruiter in that job market? And some will ask, and I've been put in that position as well. And it's like, oh no, you know, am I going to tell them too much and then they're not going to hire me? Am I going to tell them too little and then they're going to pay me a pittance for doing, you know, the job that someone else is getting paid more money for? Do your research. Just look at the average in the market, and you'll find that information online. So there are salary guides everywhere for every labor market in the world, and you can find that information quite easily online and get an idea for graduate level salaries in, and then you just Google it in the sectors and the location, and that will help you. So some salary guides might be a year or two out of date, but salaries don't go up that much. I mean, you're looking at maybe a 0.5 to 1% increase per year based on cost of living. So that's one way of doing it. But yeah, it's an awkward question to be asked. Nobody likes, you know, and especially in some cultures more than others, being asked, you know, money can be difficult. I mean, I don't really mind it because I come from a culture where money is an issue, but in Britain, it's not really something that's asked. Sometimes it's asked if you're moving from one job to another. So be prepared after your first job that it may be a question when you're changing jobs in the future, because they want to make sure that they're not underpaying you. And usually you'll get like either the same salary or more. And as you progress in your career, salaries are more clearly indicated anyway on job adverts. So don't worry about that one. Right, I'm going to go back to sharing the slides. And so when I say convince me, it's not just what you did, it's how you did it. So we talked about that, you know, your results, the outcomes, the I, not we, and use recent experiences if you can. Try not to use the same experience for everything, because it just doesn't work very well. And then make an impact with your language. So I said this: founded, launched, introduced, reorganized, resolved, transformed, simplified, eliminated, improved. Whatever it is, use the action verbs. Because if you say I was responsible for, I have to read halfway through a sentence before I can figure out what you were responsible for. So I want to see at a glance. You get 5 seconds with a CV. I want to see at a glance what you did. So, and this is where we talk about, but it isn't relevant. My experience isn't relevant to what I'm applying for. And this is the stuff that you do through your course. A lot of this is through your course. Customer service could be, again, answering questions online. It could be working with your society. It could be helping other students. It could be in halls if you're a student rep, if you're a peer mentor, if you're a student ambassador. Talking to other people and helping them is customer service. And commercial awareness, as I said, is just research. It's research. Before the pandemic, more people spent time researching their next holiday more than their career. So it's you have to really think about, you know, who are these organizations? You're potentially going to spend the next 2 to 3 years there, which can feel like a very long time if it's the wrong company. So it's really important to do the research. And then I'm going to put you back in the breakout rooms now. And I want you to, as a group, pick a skill that you think an employer really wants, okay? It can be any skill, just pick a skill. But think about, the important thing is to think about an activity that you have or could do, because there's still time left, during your time at university to demonstrate the skill. So if you think, do you know what? Problem solving is a big thing that they're always asking for in the job descriptions I've looked at, but I don't have an example. Talk in the group and try. You will be surprised at the examples, and share your examples with each other to come up with ideas of how or what activities you've already done. And if you haven't, it might help you to think about an activity you can do going forward to demonstrate the problem solving. Okay, and work it through using the CAR approach. So I'm going to stop sharing again. Is everybody clear on what I'm asking them to do? We're going to go back to the slides, and we will talk about the next section. So tailoring. So this is really important, and I get asked this all the time by students. What do you mean by tailoring? Like your CV, your experience is your experience, right? How do you tailor your experience? And does that mean saying you have a skill that you don't have? And it's not the case. Tailoring just means looking at the job description, old school, print it off and highlight things, or use a highlighter on a screen or on your tablet and pick out the skills and experiences they're looking for. Then you need to look at your CV and see, can I match those skills and experiences? Have I actually evidenced problem solving in my CV? Have I done that? And if you haven't, then you need to evidence it, because sometimes it's, if you're all familiar with Turnitin, right? That looks at your assignments and sees if you've done any plagiarism. So you submit your assignment online and it just scans a document, making sure that nobody's copied and pasted something from Google or Wikipedia. A lot of companies use similar software as an initial shortlisting tool because they don't have the human capacity to shortlist from 20,000 applications. So they will literally use like a Google search engine type software to look at your document, and if you bring up all the skills that they're looking for, you get shortlisted. So it's important, that's why it's important to tailor your CV. So if they've asked for problem solving, you have problem solving. If they've used a specific term that is specific to your industry or field of expertise, then you need to use it if you have it. So if it's around using SPSS, or anything like C++, or a specific skill of some description, you need to have it in there if you've got it. And when I say relevant, we've talked about what relevant really means. It just means, do you have this skill? It doesn't have to be an internship in a specific company for a specific period of time that was paid. It's just, do you have this skill, and can you demonstrate, evidence it through your positions of responsibility, leadership positions, volunteering experience, whatever it may be. And you can also use for your first, when you're applying for graduate jobs, you could, if you were a student rep at high school, you can use that. You know, I would say once you've finished your first graduate job and you're applying for your next job, I wouldn't have that on your CV. But for your first graduate job, to demonstrate a position of responsibility, you could include if you had any positions of responsibility at high school as well. And also use the, why am I telling you this test? So, you know, think to yourself, I'm an employer and I'm reading this. Why are you telling them this? And if it isn't really clear why you're telling them it, don't tell them it. And don't give them a reason not to employ you. So don't put things down like, you know, I've got basic French averaging 40%. You know, it's kind of like, well, if French is a required skill and you haven't got it and you're only getting 40%, you're giving them a reason not to hire you. So don't put things in there, and don't use negative language like just, but, you know, only, I only have, or I just have. It's devaluing your experience. If you don't value your experience, nobody else will. And tell them what they want to know, not what you think you should put in there. So that's where, again, you need to read the job description and put it at arm's length. If you can't read that CV at arm's length, the writing's too small. Edit ruthlessly and get a friend to read it. Always get, you know, a friend, a parent, somebody to read it. Line up the text in columns. The worst thing is when someone says, I have attention to detail, and then the columns are all like that. And you're like, do you though? At a glance, I can see these aren't lining up. That's attention to detail. Use short sentences, break up text with bullet points, and use one bullet point throughout, not 20 different bullet points. It's a black and white document. Unless you're going into a creative industry where they're looking for really creative portfolios or CVs, it's like a report document, something that can be easily scanned. Not too many capitals, because when you use capitals, you're shouting at somebody. So using capitals in a document is like shouting at somebody. And then don't use more than one font. So the font I would use is Calibri, size 11. So Calibri size 11, perfect. And the only thing I would have bigger is your name, and your name at size 14 font, so it stands out at the top. Underneath your name, you would just have, nobody really puts addresses anymore, because when was the last time anyone received a letter from an employer? So your email address and your phone number, and that's all. And then you can put under that the link to your LinkedIn account. That's it. I don't put an address on my CV. If they want an address, I can send them an address, but and that's usually when you get to the point with HR where they're offering you a job and they want to send you a contract. They might send you a paper version and you can send them your address then. So keep it simple, logical structure, clear section and headings, as I said, and get the good stuff on the first page. Sorry, my dog's coughing in the background. And we have a career set CV checker. So if you haven't checked online and you have a CV and you're thinking, how good is that CV really? All right, you can submit it online. So we have, if you go on the career service website, you can use it any time of day, any day of the week, and you can submit your CV as many times as you want. You're looking to get a score of 70 or above, and it gives you little feedback, bits and pieces on your CV that you need to improve, and might need to improve your grammar. Oh, and if you're using the letter Z or Z in your CV a lot, right? That's American English. The British don't like it. They don't like it. So if you're using the letter, so organization with a Z, it's S in the UK. So make sure that you're not using, and I'm going to stop sharing there. So hands up, how many of you knew that there were 2 versions of English? Okay, make sure your Word document is set to UK English, because if you are using the British, apart from zoo, don't really use the letter Z, right? So don't use it. If you're using it, it just means that you're using American English. And some of that software I talked about, that shortlists, will bring that up as a spelling mistake and could disqualify you. If you're applying to American companies, don't worry. If they're headquartered in the USA, it's fine. Generally, they don't mind. But if it's a British company, you're probably better off not using American English. But just be careful in your spelling. And yeah, so color has a U in it, COLOUR, rather than COLOR. So there's things like that you need to watch, because it will bring it up as a spelling mistake. So that was it. I've got to any questions. Let me just check. And so I've got to any questions. Does anybody have any questions at this point?
Can I add something, Nolene? When you were talking at the top when students specify their name and their address or LinkedIn profile, I've noticed, and I think it's a good idea, especially for international and EU students, there to specify that they now have the right to work in the UK. So I think it's an easy way for an employer to identify that they don't have to sponsor you, at least if you're remaining in the UK under the graduate route for the next 2 years. And then for EU students to also who have settled or pre-settled status, I think it's a good idea for students to identify it there at the top of their CV, just to avoid any questions from employers later. I don't know what your take is on that.
Well, the graduate route starts at 9 a.m. on the 1st of July. So if you graduate or finish a program after the 1st of July, you're entitled to apply to the graduate route. And that gives you 2 years to stay in the UK as an international. EU, if you're considered EU, you need to apply for pre-settled status. As long as you're in the UK before December, if you haven't already, apply for your pre-settled status. And employers can't ask you for proof of any pre-settled status until July. It sounds like my dog is dying in the background. He's not. He's 14. He's very old. He gets indigestion, so it makes him cough. I'm sure my dog is fine. He just pick his moments though. So yeah, pre-settled status. Employers can't ask until after June for proof of the right to work for EU citizens. I don't know why that is, but yeah, so you don't need to provide any proof if you're applying for a job. Somebody asked about starting job dates and things like job dates, start dates will differ between companies, and they will usually let you know what the start dates are. So there's not like a fixed, if you're a graduate, all graduate jobs start in September. They start at all different times. Some will start in summer, Most employers will take into account of when you're finishing your program. So they know if you're doing a master's that you're not going to start the program until after September, that kind of thing. Sometimes they may ask, what's your availability? If you're applying for a small to medium sized organization, the turnaround time for applications is 6 to 8 weeks. So normally from start of application to start date of the employment, it's 6 to 8 weeks. So if you're applying to smaller organizations or firms, take that into consideration. So if you're a master's student, you're probably applying June, July. If you're an undergraduate, you're probably applying now, really, for those kind of smaller organizations. So there's no actual fixed date for all graduate jobs. They will kind of vary. Somebody's asked me about weaknesses. When it comes to CVs, you don't put a weakness in a CV ever. Like I said, do not give an employer a reason not to hire you. I do know that in interviews, and this is a whole other session, which I'll happily run if there's a consensus that you want it, I'll run a session on interviews. If you can put your hand up if you want an interview session. Now, it will involve breakout rooms, because I do see when I say breakout rooms, a load of you run and leave the session. So, which is why I use GoToWebinar. Because then you don't have to, but if you, right, so there is a general consensus here that you want an interview session, right? Okay, so I'll put an interview session together. I'll put something in for, I'll have a look at the schedule. I'll probably do it for tomorrow. Would that suit everybody? Okay. Yeah, is tomorrow okay? Yeah, I'm getting some kind of, or would you rather me do it later on? So in the chat area, put in tomorrow or sometime in April. What is your preference in the chat area, tomorrow or sometime in April? And then I'll have a look and I'll see what's the best thing, and I'll email you all and let you know when I'm doing it. Oh God, 15 new messages. Okay, we need it. Okay. Yeah,
lots of people have interviews coming up, I'm guessing.
Okay, so what I'll do is it's kind of a 50-50. So what I'll do is I'll run a quick session tomorrow. It will be it's going to be interactive, so if you don't like breakout rooms, and then I'll run another one later on, because it'll just be the same thing that I'm running. Okay, and I'll let you know. I'll get it on Career Connect. They're probably going to kill me for adding a different yeah, they're going to kill me. It's not that easy anymore just to do a session ad hoc, but I'll do it. So I know we've gone way over, and I'm really sorry. But yeah, it's basically weaknesses is an interview thing. Don't say you're a perfectionist. Nobody wants to hear it. It doesn't work. It really doesn't. Don't also say something that is fundamental to the job. So, you know, if you're studying to be an accountant and you're applying to an accountancy firm and you go, yeah, maths is kind of like my weakness. It's like, well, you're an accountant. So yeah, things like don't pick a weakness that's fundamental to the role. It could be something like, you know, I don't know. It's hard sometimes to pick a weakness, and you think, because it differs from industry to industry. So it could be something like, but you're always addressing it, by the way. It's the idea is that you're self-aware enough to be aware of the weakness, but you're addressing the weakness. So for me, I'm a qualified coach, but because I'm also a career consultant, I give guidance. My weakness is giving advice in coaching when I shouldn't. But it's something I'm addressing, and I'm very aware, and I stop myself from giving advice when I'm coaching somebody. So that's a weakness of mine that I am addressing and very aware of. And I go to what's called coaching supervision, and I talk through my coaching experiences so I can assess what are the triggers for me when somebody, you know, when I start to give advice, so I know when not to give advice. So think about something that you are working on, something that you're aware, but that's a whole different session. So I'll email you all about the interview. And I'll create 2 sessions, and we'll invite you all to it. So that's it. Any other questions? I'm just careful I'm not missing anything.
While you're checking for questions, just to remind you that we've got 2 more sessions later today, and 3 more sessions tomorrow, and 3 more sessions on Friday if they want to sign up. And if they can't make the session tomorrow, we do have an FAQ session tomorrow, I think around lunchtime, where they can ask any sort of questions they want.
Is that okay, everybody? Okay, I'm going to end the session. Thank you so much for coming today.
Sorry, I had one question. You mentioned that we're supposed to apply for a pre-statal period or something like that for the 2 years.
If you're so if you're an EU citizen, you apply for pre-settle status. Are you EU?
No.
Okay, so then if you're international, are you on a visa?
Yes.
Okay, so then you're entitled to the graduate route, which will start from the 1st of July. And this is going to be ongoing for the foreseeable future. So it's a separate visa that you apply for, similar to how you applied for your tier 4. So you need to have funds in your account to show you're self-sufficient. And then you apply for the graduate route and allows you to stay in the UK for up to 2 years. Now, if your visa doesn't run out until March next year, for instance, you probably will apply for it in January, February time next year. You wouldn't apply for it now. So it's to add 2 years onto the end of your student visa.
Okay, thank you so much.
No problem. And it allows you to work for any employer. They don't have to be on the sponsor register. So it's great if you want to do a graduate internship or get some experience before going home. So, but I'll be doing I'm putting materials together on how you can use the graduate route, but also how employers can use the graduate route. It's just a project that I need to sit down and think about. So I will put some stuff together for those of you who want to avail of the graduate route, promise. Right, have a great morning. I'm about 10 minutes late for a meeting. So have a great day. Bye.
Bye.